Hi friends, now I'm ready with a new topic. Yesterday we had dealt with the climate chapter, and in that climate chapter we had dealt with the atmosphere. Okay, we knew about the various layers of the atmosphere: troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere and exosphere. Okay, and we also had a discussion about how the temperature varies with altitude. Okay, so this is our next topic, in which we will be studying about solar radiation, heat balance and temperature. I think everybody of you are aware of this term solar radiation. It's actually the amount of sunlight or the solar energy which is incident on the surface of Earth. Okay, that's the solar radiation. Actually it's present in the atmosphere only, but we are feeling it when we are staying on the surface of Earth. Okay, we can tell anybody that now it's a sunny day, it was a humid day yesterday, tomorrow it may rain. So all these kinds of predictions can be made through this solar radiation. It's actually the amount of solar energy which is being incident onto the surface of Earth. Okay, so that's also termed as insolation. Actually, it's the amount of energy received by the Earth as an incoming solar radiation. It's a new term, insolation. That's very important. We should remember this term, insolation. Okay, and we know that our Earth is rotating as well as revolving. Okay, so rotation will be giving you a feeling of change of day and night and all, and revolution would be associated to the change of seasons. Okay, so right now we will be dealing with the two terms, aphelion and perihelion. Okay, I'm just making very precise. Okay, I'm not making any futile discussion. Okay, because these are the basic chapters, and I would be dealing with only those concepts which are exam relevant. Okay, as I specified you yesterday too. So this is aphelion and perihelion. Aphelion is the total, actually during the revolution around the sun. I was discussing about the revolution around the sun. The Earth is having one distant, Earth is stationary at one place, okay, according to the sun, but that's actually moving. But that position which is having a very extremely maximum distance from the sun, that's termed as aphelion. Okay, while revolving around the sun, the term where the day or the time or the tenure or the period when the Earth is having the maximum distance from the sun, that's given in the bracket around 152 million kilometer on 4th of July, and that position of the Earth is called as aphelion. Okay, we know that our Earth is revolving around the sun. Okay, and in an elliptical manner. Okay, that's not quite circular. It's having a maxima and minima kind of distance on the vertical and horizontal sides. If you would be just having a look over the revolution, I think it's having a figure over here. No, I don't think. Okay, let's imagine that one circular object or a spherical object is present at the center, and you are just trying to move something around it. Okay, not in a circular manner but in an elliptical manner. Okay, so since ellipse is having a non-uniform kind of distance around it. It's not like a circle that it will be having a common radius, which would be having a common length throughout the periphery, throughout the circumference of that circle. It's a ellipse, that's why it would be having one maximum distance and would be having one minimum distance. So the duration or the position of the earth when the earth would be at a maximum distance from the sun, that would be termed as aphelion. Okay, and that's seen on the 4th of July. Okay, similarly, when the earth would be having a position which would be at a minimum distance from the sun, that would be around 147 million kilometers as stated in this book, that position would be called as the perihelion. Okay, so it's a very basic topic, aphelion and perihelion. If you do have a basic concept about ellipse and coordinate geometry, then you can just visualize this phenomena. And in most of the figures also you might have seen the position of the revolution of the earth around the sun, and that would be giving you a idea about the maximum and minimum distances, okay, in an ellipse, that are in the geographical terms called as the aphelion and perihelion respectively. Okay, this is as simple as that. Not much rocket science is related to this. This is something which is associated to the position of the earth with respect to the sun. Okay, the maximum distance would be called as aphelion and the minimum distance would be called as the perihelion. Okay, and one is seen on 3rd of January, that's called the perihelion, and the other one on the 4th of July, that's the aphelion. Okay, now we will be discussing about the variability of insolation at the surface of the earth. Insolation, as I stated you right now, just few minutes back, that is the amount of solar energy being received by the earth, okay, so from the sun. So how does it vary on the surface of the earth? We'll be discussing about this. So there are 20 number of facts and reasons which are responsible for this insolation variability. They are that rotation of the earth on its axis. As I said you that rotation is a common phenomena of the earth which brings day and night, okay, to the earth, to the earthlings, to the people of earth. We can just tell that this is a daytime because of the rotation. Similar is the case with the night. Okay, actually the earth is rotating around its own axis, and that axis is also not vertical, it's inclined at an angle of 23.5 degrees. Okay, and the rotation of the earth takes place from west to east. Okay, so what happens that whenever the sun is at this position, let me show you the figure and you will be understanding. Okay, here in this figure you can see that the sun rays are coming from the right side to the left. Okay, so this hemisphere, this part of the circle or the sphere, that's called the hemisphere, which has been painted white, is having a maximum insolation, okay, at this point of time when the position of the rotation of the earth is like this, that's shown in the figure. Okay, all the things, the equator, the tropic of Cancer, Capricorn, everything is having an inclination. Okay, as I said you that the axis, even it is not vertical, but it is quite inclined at an angle of 23.5 as you can see in the figure. So these places on the earth which are present on this hemisphere, and partly those places, partly one arc kind of figure of that hemisphere. Okay, the other one hemisphere you can see in that part, topmost arc kind of structure. Okay, and this arc, two arcs are there, one is the bigger arc and the other is the smaller one. So this part of the earth will be receiving the maximum kind of insolation of the sun rays, okay, because of certain inclination of the axis and also the rotation. Okay, now if the earth rotates, okay, and this part goes to that side and that dark part comes to this side, then what happens, that part would get eliminated and this part would be considered as a dark part. Okay, so initially in this part it was actually the day and the dark one was having a night, since the insolation was not present. Okay, now the scenario has completely changed. Due to the rotation of the earth, that part has come to this side and this part has gone to that side. Since the earth is only rotating, the sun is fixed at its own place, sun is not having any kind of motion or any kind of movement, it's stationary at its place, the earth is only rotating. So every part of the earth gets illuminated, gets day or gets night at any part of that entire day, 24 hours. Okay, so you can say that some part is having day, some part is having night. Okay, because of this rotation and axis inclination phenomena. Is it clear? Okay, now the next phenomena is the angle of inclination of the sun's ray. As I said you, the same angle of inclination of the sun rays, when in these parts it's just having a vertical inclination, horizontal inclination actually, but in the topmost part where the poles are there, it won't be having a vertical kind of inclination, entire part won't get illuminated. Okay, only a part of that will get illuminated by the sun. Okay, so this would be having a variability in the insolation too. The third one is the length of the day. The length of the day is actually some part of the day would be having a morning kind of feeling, other one would be having a noon, and the next one would be having evening. So these are all part of day. Okay, night comes after that. So the amount of insolation received in the morning is quite less. Okay, because the sun is not at all vertically above, it's having an inclination. Okay, that inclination constitutes of the sun rays and the radiations that reach the earth's surface. Okay, then that intensity of that radiation increases by noon, when the sun is just vertically above the earth. Okay, vertically above somebody. If you are just standing outside at 12.00, okay, 12 noon, then you would be finding the sun is just vertically over you. At that point of time you would be feeling the maximum heat during the entire 24 hours. Okay, and the third point, when the evening, the again such inclination takes place, sun is about to set. In the morning sun had just risen. In the evening sun is about to set, so the intensity of insolation would also be decreasing, because the sun is going to set in the horizon and it's planning for the next day. Now the night would come, there won't be any sun seen in the sky, there will be arrival of the moon. So this is also a case when these kinds of phenomena change, the intensity actually changes during the entire part of the day, where at some point of the day you would be having vertical rays of the sun which would be giving you maximum temperature, at some part of the uh, time in the morning, and in the evening you would be having some slant kind of insolation and solar radiation to be reflected onto the earth. So this intensity of insolation change. Now the next topic is the transparency of the atmosphere. As I said you that yesterday, I said you that the dust particles are mostly found in the troposphere, that's in the lower layer only. Okay, so these dust particles also protect us from the harmful radiation of the earth's of the sun. Not all, but at least 10% we can be just getting some kind of protection, because these dust particles present in the lowermost layer, which is very near to the earth, protect the sun ray to become very intense on reaching the earth. Okay, so when the sun ray is just coming from that point, they are just meeting the troposphere before entering into the earth's surface. So some kind of insolation disturbances take place. Not 100% insolation occurs onto the surface of earth, rather there is a interference and destructive interference actually of that solar radiation. It gets reduced, intensity gets reduced on reaching the earth because of the presence of these dust particles. Hence one term is there, transparency of the atmosphere. Transparency of the atmosphere gets disturbed when any unknown particle is existing in the atmosphere, such as dust, soot, smoke, pollutants, everything is not at all that transparent. So it also creates a hindrance in the amount of insolation being received by the earth from the sun. The next one is the configuration of the land in terms of its aspect. Yeah, the configuration of land is somewhere there is a rocky area, somewhere there is the hilly area, somewhere there is desert, somewhere there is rivers, somewhere there are vegetative growth, somewhere there are dense forests. So amount of insolation received at these places also vary because of the configuration of the land. So if you would be standing in the mid of the Sahara desert, you would be having a maximum temperature at that place, and your body would be getting maximum amount of heat from the sun, because there is no source of any other kind of object which can just absorb that solar energy. We can use it. If you are just standing in an Amazon forest, you would be not having that much intense sunlight as it was in the first case when you are just sitting in the Sahara desert or any kind of desert, because that solar radiation insolation is being used for some purpose, used by the plants for their growth, used by the animals, used by any other kind of thing. Can be used by the can be absorbed by the lakes and rivers, which can just again evaporate it and create moisture, and again the same condensation water cycle will be taking place. So the configuration of land in terms of its aspect is also a very important thing. The quality of the land, the property of the land actually will be deciding the amount of insolation being received at a particular place. Okay, the deserts would be having extremely high temperature, the rainforest would be having slightly low one, the other places which are having rocky mountains or any other kind of things would be having some other intensity of insolation being received by them. So these are the various factors. Okay, you have discussed them in detail. If you do have any other confusion, then you just can comment down below. I will be answering you. Okay, next one is, these are all the elaborated kind of things. These are the insertions on the earth's surface. Hmm. Heating and cooling of the atmosphere. Next topic. Did I leave anything? No. No, no. Every topic has been covered. Heating and cooling of the atmosphere. Okay. So heating and cooling are two phenomena, okay, which are commonly known by their terminologies only. Heating means increasing the temperature of a particular place, cooling reducing the temperature. They are all thermal and cooling effects. So conduction is a process. Conduction, radiation and convection, these are three kinds of properties of thermodynamics which are being used in the atmosphere also. So what is conduction we will be discussing. The air in contact with the land gets heated slowly. Okay. The earth, after being heated by insolation, transmits the heat to the atmospheric layer near the earth in a long wave form. Yeah, one more thing. The transmission of the heat into the atmospheric layer near the earth is in the long wave form. You should remember this thing. The air which is in contact with the land gets heated slowly, okay, and the upper layers in contact with the lower layers also get heated. This process is called conduction. This is a simple thermodynamic property, okay. When any body gets heated, then that heat gets transferred to the nearby body which is having in contact with the previous one. Similar is the case of heat transfer by conduction. Okay, the earth being heated after getting sufficient amount of insolation onto the surface of earth, and the air which is coming in contact with the solar radiation in the atmosphere gets heated, okay, and the upper layer in the contact with the lower layer also gets heated. This process is called conduction. I told you that it's a contact ridden phenomena, okay. So conduction takes place when the two bodies of unequal temperature are in contact with one another. There is a flow of energy from warmer to the cooler body. That's the simple first law of thermodynamics, okay. When one body is in contact with another body, that second body gets heated. Second body, if it is in contact with the first body, the third body, then it also gets heated, and in this way the heat transfer takes place, okay. This heat transfer takes place until both the bodies attain the same temperature or the contact is broken, okay. This is the point to be noted. What happens actually, that I said you that the object which gets heated when coming in the contact with another object also gets heated, okay, and attain the same. This phenomena takes place until both the bodies attain the same temperature or the contact gets broken. Conduction is important in heating the lower layers of the atmosphere, okay. I told you that the lower layer of the atmosphere is having a contact with the incoming solar radiation. They get heated first, then the lower layers of that upper layer gets heated first, then lower layer gets heated then, and in this way the transfer of heat takes place by the phenomenon of conduction. Now the convection is a topic. The air is in contact with the earth, rises vertically on heating in the form of currents and further transmits the heat of the atmosphere. The air which is in contact with the earth rises vertically, then gets heated in the form of currents and further transmits the heat of the atmosphere. Heat of the atmosphere gets transmitted. This is called vertical heating of the atmosphere, and the process is called convection. Convective transfer of heat energy is confined only to the troposphere. Okay, the transfer of heat through horizontal movement of air is called advection, and the air is moving and it is coming in contact with the solar insolation, then gets heated, and when that heated air moves, heats its nearby particles again, all the particles, infinite small particles, get heated. This process is called advection, which is a phenomena of horizontal movement of air, which is actually hot because of the insolation of the solar insolation of the sun. This causes transfer of heat through horizontal movement of air. Diurnal day and night variation in the daily weather causes an advection alone. Diurnal temperature is the temperature difference between the day and the night. Okay, diurnal temperature. It has not been given in this book, but in other books it has been given. Again, now we will be discussing about Lu. Lu, as everybody know, very high intensity hot wind blowing mostly in the North India, okay, during the summers. Now the terrestrial radiation and the heat budget of the earth. These are the topics which are also basic. Temperature and distribution of temperature. These are all topics. Inversion of temperature. After that the chapter gets closed. So terrestrial radiation. The insolation received by the earth in a short wave form and heats up the surface. The earth, after being heated, itself becomes a radiating body and radiates energy to the atmosphere in a long wave form. As I said you right just before, this energy heats up the atmosphere from below. This process is called terrestrial radiation. The insolation received by the earth, whatever amount of solar radiation is being received by the earth, okay, in a short wave form and heating up the surface of the earth, okay, when it gets heated, it acts as a radiating body and it radiates heat to the atmosphere in a long wave form. Radiation of heat by the earth's surface takes place into the atmosphere in the long wave form. Okay, this heating of the atmosphere from below is called terrestrial radiation. Heat budget of the planet Earth. Okay. Heat budget of the planet Earth. The insolation received, this is an important thing, albedo of the earth. The reflected amount of radiation is called albedo of the earth. Let's see what is this albedo. There is a certain statistics associated with this. Okay, you should keep this in mind. It won't be asked in the exam, but yeah, you can just, for the knowledge point of view, for the purpose of seeking knowledge, you can just keep this in mind, that it has been explained by one example, that if the atmosphere has received 100% of the solar insolation, okay, then while passing through the atmosphere, some of the energy gets reflected, scattered and absorbed. Only the remaining part reaches the earth. When 100% is being reflected from the sun in the form of solar insolation. Because of the destructive interference on reaching the surface of the earth, as I said you that there are plenty number of impurities and everything, every kind of external non-linearities take place which destructs the uh, complete insolation being received onto the surface of earth. So because of these interferences and disturbances, roughly 35 units are reflected back to the space even before reaching the earth's surface. Out of that, 27 units are reflected back from the top of the clouds and 2 units from the snow and ice covered areas. This reflected amount of radiation is called albedo of the earth. Okay, precisely I would say that albedo is associated with the total amount of radiation of the sun which has been reflected from the surface of earth. Okay, 100% if was the input being sent by the sun in the form of solar radiation, some x amount goes wasted. They actually get absorbed by various kinds of interference. Some get by the snowfall, some gets used in the atmosphere, cloud, ice covered areas of the earth, etc. This kind of reflected amount of radiation is called albedo of the earth. Albedo is the capacity of the earth to reflect the amount of radiation so that no 100% induction of that air, that solar insolation is not taking place onto the surface of the earth. Further explanation has been made. The remaining 65 units are absorbed, 14 units within the atmosphere, 51 units by the earth's surface. The earth radiates back 51 units in the form of terrestrial radiation. Terrestrial radiation I told you right now, or just before. Okay, that the earth also heats the atmosphere by the heat which it has received from the sun. Heat transfer takes place again by the land or the earth's surface. This is called terrestrial radiation. So albedo, it was all about albedo and heat budget of the planet earth. Concluding, we can say that 100% solar insolation doesn't get received onto the surface of earth. There are plenty number of sources which cause the dissipation of heat, which reduce the amount of insolation being received onto the surface of earth. This is actually the heat budget of earth, planet earth. It has been explained with a beautiful concept of albedo. Okay. Variation in the net heat budget of the earth's surface. Variation, the amount of radiation received at the earth's surface. Some part of the earth has surplus radiation balance while the other part has deficit. See, this is actually the hemispherical part of one part of the earth. A part of the earth has been chosen. Okay, it is explaining the amount of intensity of the solar radiation being received onto the surface of earth. Some places which are having a vertical topography, okay, they are just below the sun's position, they are having a surplus solar radiation. But those which are having a latitudinal difference, they are located on the inclined part or not vertically below the sun, they are having a deficit of the total solar radiation. So next one is the temperature. The interaction of insolation with the atmosphere and the earth's surface creates heat which is measured in terms of temperature. Temperature is actually the degree of hotness of or coldness of a body, of anything, any body, living, non-living, anything. Okay, this we had been studying since childhood, so this is simply a term associated to temperature. When heat represents the molecular movement of particles comprising the substance, the temperature is the measurement of degree, is how hot a thing or a place is. Okay. Heat transfer actually intensifies the molecular movement. At the microscopic level, if you are visualizing thing, then you would be seeing that there are movement of the molecules inside the body, whether it is a living body or a non-living body. The kinetic energy increases in the molecules, and the molecules start moving and colliding with each other. This movement generates heat in that body. We have been studying in our physics and chemistry and all pre-matriculated studies, and even in class 11-12 we had studied this. Okay, so there is no much effort in understanding this.